The night was cold, the streets nearly empty except for a few wandering souls. Among them was an old man wrapped in tattered blankets, his frail body shivering under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. He sat on the sidewalk, holding a cardboard sign with faded letters, "Hungry. Please help." Officer Mark Reynolds had been patrolling this street for years. To him, the homeless were just part of the scenery, unfortunate, but irrelevant. That night, his patience was thinner than usual. He had just received a reprimand from his superior. His personal life was in shambles, and the last thing he needed was another public nuisance blocking the storefronts. As he approached, his voice was sharp. "You can't stay here. Move along." The old man barely looked up, his eyes clouded with exhaustion. "I have nowhere to go." Reynolds clenched his jaw. Enough was enough. Without warning, he grabbed the man's arm and yanked him up. The old man yelped in pain, stumbling, but before he could regain his balance, a hard shove sent him sprawling onto the pavement. A sharp gasp echoed from a nearby alley. Unbeknownst to Reynolds, someone had been watching from the tinted window of a black SUV parked across the street. Donald Trump sat motionless, his eyes locked onto the scene. His fingers drummed against the leather seat, his expression unreadable. This night was about to take a turn no one expected. For a brief moment, silence hung in the cold air. The old man groaned, clutching his elbow where he had hit the pavement. Officer Reynolds exhaled sharply, his breath visible in the freezing night. He glanced around, no witnesses. He thought, just another night, another problem handled, but he was wrong. Inside the black SUV, Donald Trump leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. He had seen everything. He tapped his driver on the shoulder. "Pull up next to him." Now. The engine growled as the vehicle rolled forward, stopping right beside the officer. The sudden presence of the imposing black SUV made Reynolds stiffen. The window rolled down, and to his shock, he found himself face to face with the unmistakable figure of Donald Trump. "That's a hell of a way to treat a veteran," Trump said, his voice calm but firm. Reynolds blinked. "Veteran?" He glanced at the old man, now struggling to sit up, his breath shaky. His mind raced. Was this guy really someone important? Trump turned to the old man. "What's your name, sir?" The old man hesitated before muttering. James Carter." Trump's expression darkened. James Carter, U.S. Marine Corps, Purple Heart recipient. Reynolds' stomach twisted into a knot. He had just shoved a decorated war hero to the ground. Before the officer could react, Trump pulled out his phone and took a quick video. "You're in big trouble, officer. I don't like bullies, and I sure as hell don't like seeing our veterans treated like trash." Reynolds opened his mouth to protest, but Trump was already dialing. "Yeah, get the mayor on the line. Right now." The air grew thick with tension. James Carter, still on the ground, watched the scene unfold with weary eyes. This night was far from over. Officer Reynolds felt a cold sweat forming at the back of his neck. The moment Trump mentioned the mayor, his heart pounded. This was bad, really bad. "Mr. Trump, listen, this isn't what it looks like." Reynolds stammered. "I was just trying to clear the area. I didn't know." Trump cut him off with a sharp glance. "You didn't know? Or you didn't care?" His voice was low, controlled, but carried the weight of someone used to getting answers. James Carter coughed, slowly pushing himself up. His frail fingers trembled as he wiped a streak of dirt from his cheek. Trump gestured for his driver, who quickly stepped out and helped the old man to his feet. Just then, a new voice broke through the tension. "What's going on here?" A second police car had pulled up. A sergeant stepped out, his face shifting from curiosity to alarm when he saw Trump standing there. His eyes darted from the homeless man to Reynolds, then back to Trump. "Officer Reynolds," the sergeant said cautiously. "Is there a problem?" Trump folded his arms. "Yeah, there's a problem. Your officer just assaulted a homeless veteran. And I have it all on video." The sergeant visibly tensed. Reynolds turned pale. "Sir, if you'd allow me to." "Save it," Trump snapped. "I don't want excuses. I want results." Then, he did something unexpected. He turned back to James Carter and spoke in a softer tone. "Tell me what happened, James." The old man hesitated, looking between Trump and the officers. His voice, though weak, carried years of pain. "I was just sitting here. Wasn't bothering anyone. Then he told me to leave. I told him I had nowhere to go. Next thing I knew, I was on the ground. Trump's expression darkened. He looked at the sergeant. Is that how your department treats veterans? Because I'd love to hear what the public thinks about that. Reynolds opened his mouth, but the sergeant shot him a glare that shut him up instantly. Mr. Trump, I assure you we'll handle this internally, the sergeant said carefully. Trump shook his head. Not good enough. He turned back to James. James, do you want to press charges? The old man hesitated. His eyes held years of disappointment, but also exhaustion. I just want to be left alone, he muttered. Trump studied him for a long moment before nodding. All right, but you're not sleeping on the streets tonight. He turned to his driver. Take him to the best hotel in the city. On me. Make sure he's fed, clothed, and taken care of. The driver nodded. Reynolds watched in stunned silence as James Carter was gently guided into the SUV. But Trump wasn't done. He turned back to the sergeant. I expect a full investigation, and I'll be checking in personally. The sergeant swallowed hard. Yes, sir. As Trump got into his car, he glanced one last time at Reynolds. You got lucky tonight, officer, but next time, the world will be watching. The door shut. The black SUV rolled away, leaving Reynolds standing there, heart hammering in his chest. Officer Reynolds stood frozen as the taillights of Trump's SUV disappeared into the night. His hands clenched into fists. This can't be happening. The sergeant exhaled, rubbing his temples. Reynolds, what the hell were you thinking? It was just a damn homeless guy. Reynolds muttered under his breath. How was I supposed to know Trump would be there? The sergeant's eyes flared with anger. You think that's the issue here? You assaulted a man on the street, on camera. And not just any man, but a war hero. And Trump saw it? Do you have any idea what kind of storm is about to hit us? Reynolds gulped. He knew exactly what kind of storm. By morning, the internet was on fire. The video Trump recorded had gone viral. Every news channel, every social media platform, every talk show was blasting the headline. Revolving light, homeless veteran assaulted by cop, Trump witnesses and takes action. Revolving light. The footage showed everything. Reynolds shoving the frail old man to the ground. Trump stepping in, and the final words that sent chills through the public. You got lucky tonight, officer, but next time, the world will be watching. The public was watching, and they were furious. The police department's phone lines were flooded with calls demanding Reynolds be fired. Protesters gathered outside the station, holding signs that read, "Justice for James Carter. No more police brutality." Trump did more than the cops. The mayor, desperate to control the situation, held a press conference. We are launching a full investigation into Officer Reynolds' actions. We do not tolerate police misconduct. And we stand by our veterans. But that wasn't enough. People wanted blood. Reynolds knew his career was over before the official suspension letter even hit his desk. The department placed him on administrative leave. But he knew the truth. He was the scapegoat now. His face was plastered all over the news. His neighbors started giving him dirty looks. His mailbox overflowed with hate mail. And then, his wife left him. I can't do this, Mark, she had said, packing her bags. I didn't sign up to be married to America's most hated cop. Reynolds tried to turn off the TV. But the news just kept coming. Then, the worst part hit him like a punch to the gut. Trump was using the incident to launch a new initiative, Justice for Forgotten Heroes. Not only had Trump paid for James Carter's hotel stay, but he had also bought him a house. A fully furnished house. And not just for him, for 10 other homeless veterans. The public loved it. Trump was hailed as a hero. Meanwhile, Reynolds was drowning in hate. One night, as he sat in his darkened apartment, drinking whiskey straight from the bottle, his phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. You really thought I wouldn't follow up? DT. Reynolds' blood ran cold. Trump wasn't done with him yet. Reynolds stared at his phone screen, his mind racing. You really thought I wouldn't follow up? DT. A chill ran down his spine. Was this a threat? A warning? Or just Trump being Trump? His hands trembled as he took another swig of whiskey. The world had turned against him overnight. His job? Gone. His wife? Gone. His reputation? Destroyed. But he wasn't going down without a fight. Determined to find a way out, Reynolds began digging. Something wasn't right about this whole thing. Who was James Carter? Really? Sure, Trump called him a war hero. But Reynolds had worked the streets for years and had never heard of him. Where had this guy been all this time? Why had he appeared at that exact moment? And how the hell did Trump recognize him so fast? None of it added up. Reynolds hacked into an old police database using a backdoor login he still had access to. He typed in the name, James Carter. A file popped up, but it wasn't what he expected. James Carter had been declared dead 20 years ago. Reynolds' heart pounded. His mind raced. If James Carter was dead, then who the hell was the man Trump had saved? Donald Trump leaned back in his golden chair, sipping Diet Coke as he scrolled through Twitter. The hashtag justice for James was trending worldwide. Beautiful, just beautiful, he muttered to himself. A knock at the door. Come in. His assistant entered, carrying a file. Mr. Trump, there's something strange about James Carter. Trump raised an eyebrow. Strange how? The man you helped, he doesn't exist. At least, not officially. The real James Carter died 2 decades ago in a classified military operation. Trump slowly set his Diet Coke down. What the hell was going on? Back in his apartment, Reynolds kept digging. He hacked into deeper files, government-level records, and then, he found it, buried under layers of security clearance. James Carter wasn't just some veteran. He had been a government asset. A spy. A ghost. Someone who was never supposed to be found. But somehow, Trump had recognized him instantly. Reynolds' eyes widened. Was Trump part of this? Had he staged the entire event to push his new initiative? Had James Carter been planted there on purpose? And if so, what was the real endgame? Reynolds grabbed his coat and rushed outside. He knew exactly where Carter was supposed to be. Trump had arranged for him to stay at the most luxurious hotel in the city. But when he arrived at the hotel lobby, something was off. The front desk clerk looked confused when Reynolds asked about Carter. Sir, there's no guest by that name. Reynolds' stomach dropped. What do you mean? Donald Trump himself put him here. The clerk shook her head. I don't know what to tell you. Sir, we have no record of anyone named James Carter checking in. Reynolds stepped back, his heart hammering. Carter was gone. No records. No check-in. It was as if he had never existed. Trump sat in his office, staring at a secure laptop screen. The file was labeled, Carter Protocol, activated. He leaned back, cracking his knuckles. Good, good. Everything is going exactly as planned. His phone buzzed. He answered without hesitation. Is he secure? A deep voice on the other end responded. Yes, sir. Carter has been relocated. No loose ends. Trump smirked. Perfect. Let the media eat up the distraction. We move forward with the next phase. He ended the call and looked out the window at the city skyline. The world thought he was just a billionaire playing politics. They had no idea what was coming next. Back on the streets, Reynolds was sweating. He had been standing outside the hotel for too long, lost in thought. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something. A black SUV, parked across the street. It had tinted windows, no plates, and it had been there the entire time. His gut told him to run, but it was too late. The SUV door opened. 2 men in black suits stepped out. One of them pulled out a phone and spoke into it. Target located. Moving in now. Reynolds' breath caught. Target? They were here for him. He turned on his heel and sprinted into the night. Reynolds' lungs burned as he sprinted through the alleyways of the city, his mind racing just as fast. They were coming for him. The black-suited agents were gaining ground. Who were they working for? Trump? The government? Someone worse? He had no time to think. He needed to escape. Ducking into a side street, he spotted an open sewer grate. Disgusting, but better than being dead. With a final glance over his shoulder, he dropped down into the darkness just as the agents rounded the corner. Crawling through the sewer tunnels, Reynolds pulled out his phone. He had copied Carter's classified file before leaving his apartment. Now, he finally had time to really look at it. And what he saw shattered everything he thought he knew. James Carter wasn't just a government asset. He had been part of a failed experiment. Decades ago, the U.S. military had conducted secret psychological warfare tests, experiments designed to create super-loyal operatives who could be activated and used for covert missions. Carter had been one of them. But something went wrong. His mind had fractured. He disappeared, erased from records, assumed dead. Until now. Until Trump found him. And suddenly, Reynolds understood. Trump hadn't just saved Carter out of kindness. He had activated him. Meanwhile, at Trump Tower, the former president was watching a private video feed. It showed James Carter inside a hidden facility, strapped to a chair. Doctors surrounded him. Machines hummed. A deep voice spoke over the intercom. "Sir, the reconditioning is complete. He's ready for deployment." Trump smirked, his fingers tapping the desk. "Excellent. Release him." A door slid open. Carter stepped forward, his expression blank, his posture too perfect. His eyes glowed with a strange artificial sharpness. He wasn't homeless anymore. He wasn't even really James Carter anymore. He was something else. And Reynolds was the only person left who knew the truth. Reynolds emerged from the underground tunnels, covered in filth, heart-pounding. He had one last move left. Expose Trump. He hacked into a live news broadcast. A national network. A primetime slot. He uploaded everything, the classified files. The truth about Carter. The secret military experiments. Then, he did the unthinkable. He called Trump directly. The billionaire picked up, calm as ever. "Mark, you've been busy. It's over." "Trump," Reynolds growled. "The whole world is about to see what you've done." Silence. Then, Trump chuckled. "You still don't get it, do you?" A cold dread gripped Reynolds' spine. "What are you talking about?" "Go ahead," Trump said smoothly. "Leak the files. Expose me. Do you really think people will believe you? Or will they just see a disgraced cop trying to blame me for his failures?" Reynolds' mouth went dry. "Check your TV, Mark." Reynolds turned, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The media was already spinning the story. Disgraced Officer Mark Reynolds spreads baseless conspiracy theory against Trump. Homeless veteran found safe. No evidence of Trump's wrongdoing. Was this all a smear job? It was already too late. Trump had won. "You never had a chance," Trump said softly. "Goodbye, Mark." Then, the line went dead. A knock at Reynolds' door. The black SUVs had found him.